Well, hi, Kelly. Thank you so much for joining me.
Hi, Robert. Great afternoon to you.
Yeah, I'm trying to think back. You saw the initial flyer for this. Was that the first time you heard about the program, or did you get it from somebody else? So you saw
No,
the
when
flyer.
PMDA
That's who it was.
mentioned it to me, and it was something they felt like I might be interested in,
Right.
was the first time I heard about that program.
And what's unique that everyone should know off the bat is, first of all, you're not a person with Parkinson's. You are, and I want to get the terminology right, you're a caregiver.
Yes.
Okay. So you basically said, hey, I heard about this, as I recall, and I'd love to be part of it. I know I'm maybe out of the box a little on this, but if I can, I'd like to be. Is that basically what you remember?
I didn't even realize I was out of the box.
Oh,
I just said, I want to be part of this program. I heard about it, and Shannon at PMDA felt like it would be a good fit. And you did not respond to me at first. And I called Shannon and said, hey, I haven't heard that. And then I did. And you said, well, let's rethink this and let's talk about it. And you and Susan and I did one-on-one and decided it could potentially work.
well, and so the thing was, the program was built for people with Parkinson's,
Mhm,
and as a care partner myself, I certainly a care, as I call a care partner, caregiver, and
mhm.
we'll have that discussion at some point. But we, I recognize, of course, the value of being that person and the difficulty and struggle and story that you have to tell. And I had to really look at the structure of the study to say, okay, will this work? And if I'm going to bring in a beta test, is she the right person to bring in? And that was the reason to have you with Susan and myself to
Mhm.
have that, as you said, one-on-one conversation to let's put it all on the table. Do we understand what this is, and what are the potholes, and what are the possibilities? And by the end of it, I was very convinced you'd be a great fit. And I could say, after running through the program, you brought a lot to the program. So I thank you for saying yes to it, and and
I
bringing
thank you
in
for
that perspective.
accepting.
Yeah, there is a whole role as a care partner, and we'll address that as we go through this. So let's go kind of piece by piece. When you first saw that improvisation was part of this and had that brought forth, how did you react to that? What was your feeling about that being part of this process?
I was had like so many people I feel had a very misconception of what even improv was about. I think I had noticed something about the writing part of it, and that's what piqued my interest was because I love to write. And I thought this was an opportunity to learn about writing, but it turned out to be so much more than I ever dreamed of it being. And I learned what improv is and the value it can bring to lives.
Right. So you said you were very comfortable with and liked the writing aspect. What did you think when the hero's journey was brought into that? Had you heard of it before, and how'd you feel?
No.
Okay.
And there was a few times it was brutal. There was once or twice I felt like I had somebody to jump in the middle of me and I needed it. And thankfully that person realized I did need it. And and it changed so much in my life. It changed a lot of aspects. It helped me to see the journey in a different aspect, to see me. I mean, it's been a learning experience, a huge learning experience. That's just, I mean, it's changed my life, many things about my life.
Can you give an example, perhaps, where you feel like what you've learned from the hero's journey has made a positive impact on your life?
I I struggle. I talk Texan, I write Texan, I am Texan, and I always, since I feel like writing goes into the academia world, would look for approval from the academia world. I do not have the grammar that they have. I do not use the punctuation. I have become more monosyllable with my Parkinson's partner. I mean, I feel like I have one word discussion. I mean, once, for, yes. And then I have my own little thing with my, I call it a dementia, where I forget things. And so I struggled to write because I felt judged that I was not good enough. It was not right. It was not correct. If somebody was going to tell me, no, the period go there, no, and I did have people to do that. And one of the members told me one day, Ducky, when she said, "You're not writing for academia, you're not writing for professional, you are writing your story, and it's beautifully written. Do not let anybody judge you." And it opened, I felt like, new doors for me. Uh,
Oh, looks like you're frozen for the moment. We'll let you come back. Hopefully that was just a temporary thing. I'm going to go ahead and pause. Okay, we're back from our break. Go ahead, pick it up, Kelley.
okay. Ducky, or Allie, as we call her Ducky, she reassured me that my writing was coming from my perspective and from my heart, and that I did not need to worry about the academia world. And then you taught me, as what I like to call my Yoda, about my what I always seen as a deep recess that I kept hidden. You taught me how to, with the writing, how to go into those and pull the things out and see them in a different light, and how to conquer them, and how to, what I call tame my dinosaurs, and meet these people and make friends with them. And this is, all this writing done this, and so I can write about those things, and I can teach other caregivers. I feel like about the things that they get shut up inside of.
Mm. I think that's a really important point, which you said, well, several of them, but the last part about people not having their voice and or their emotion expressed, that they feel shut in, and that these feelings can become metastasized. They can become, demons, monsters, as you said, and that you were able to manifest and then therefore transform those relationships is pretty remarkable.
Yep, I like my dragons. They've got names, and I have learned that slugs, which are people, there's good ones and bad ones, and I've learned how to have my anti-slug serum, as I call it. And they're just simple comments and things there. Again, I've learned through improv. You haven't been there yet. Little words that take the bite out of our comments. And there again, I feel like open doors.
Yeah, yeah. It sounds like those doors too are sometimes doors to yourself and sometimes doors to external reality. They lie in, different places for you. So how would you describe your feeling? Well, let's not even go that's too summary. I want to walk through this. I don't want to overview this yet. So, okay, so you're writing, you get this empowerment from Allie, you get one from Yoda. Thank you. I appreciate that. And you begin to write these dragons. And I remember seeing them and delighting in them. What is the power in giving form to these voices and or fears or whatever else you want to call them? What was that like for you to give them the space on the page to become what they needed to become?
It made them easier to deal with. They had a true form. And when stuff are gases, is what I want to call them, when they're out there and you really can't see with them, wind and this stuff, it's hard to deal with it. It's hard to control it. Electricity, things we can't see. But the minute we can put it in a wire, when we can put it in a container, now we can do something with it because it has a shape.
Yeah.
And so when I put these emotions and these struggles into shape, now I can see them. They have a name. Now I can work with them.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So, and as you said, you are by nature an outspoken person. However, some of these things weren't coming out of you still. You didn't recognize them within you. What was that feeling of discovery to find things that and give them names to go, oh man, that's that thing, or that's what that is? What was that feeling?
At first, it was literally take my breath away. One day when you call me out on something, it took my breath away, and I sit back, and I was never offended. It just took my breath away, like, whoo, like you had just hit me. And you had hit me. And so to be able to see those things and say, oh, I did rebel. I was fighting back. It gave me new power. I understood the struggles that I went through. a lot better. And I better understood the struggles I was going through now, both to care for my guy and caring with the women that I work with.
That's an important point.
It brings things forth into life.
Yeah. So I want to make sure that detail's clear. You are not only a caregiver, but you run a program for other women who are caregivers for people with PD, correct?
I call myself a Parkinson care advocate.
There you go. Okay. So you are already, and at the time we met, you were very active doing this sort of thing. You joined this program with a group. The rest of everybody in the room was a person with Parkinson's. What do you think about, now that you've been the canary in the coal mine, about this program extending into care partners, it being something where more of those stories get told?
There's so much that they need to learn. Not only can they learn, that we need to learn, that where, as sad as it makes me say this, the Parkinson's community, I like to say, stops caring about us about the time those with Parkinson's hit that midway point, when they start advancing. The programs don't really address their situations. And the carers are the ones that need so much of the help. They're the ones that have to be the directors. They're the ones that have to be the caregivers. They're the ones that have to be the advocates. And no one teaches and shares. Part of that problem being is because there's people that's in the program that don't understand this, so they can't teach something they don't know. Academia can only go so far. At times you need experience. And so often the ones of us that feel like we're caregivers, we feel like nobody gives a rap hoodoo about us or our persons.
That's a really important point. Feeling unheard is a common story, not only for people with Parkinson's, but growing as I'm meeting more care partners for those who are caring. And there are, like you say, general programs because they're easier to point to about what to do at an earlier stage. But as symptoms progress, and no one can say anything other than they will, that's all we know about them right now, what to do with the person who is, like you said, in the front of that care, taking care of the person who no longer can do the things for him or herself that they used to.
At the same time, I want to say this in defense of the Parkinson's community and the doctors. They are trained, they are there to give the person with Parkinson's, that's where their main tension is at. They are trained to give hope, because the one with Parkinson's must maintain that hope for as long as they possibly can. And so I often will say the person with Parkinson's has one reality. As Parkinson's progresses, the caregiver has another reality. And the doctors are only paid to deal with this reality.
Okay.
That's part of the problem, and not the care. But so the Parkinson's community has to take and pick up over here where the medical does not pay the doctors to help us and work with us and give us the answers we need.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, the gap that you're speaking about is for the caregivers who have to deal with the realities of Parkinson's, that the doctors are trying to, if not, they're not keeping them away necessarily, they're just trying to shift the people with Parkinson's into a position of hope as long as they can to keep them active, to do those things.
That, and if they did not give them hope, they would become the enemy.
Right. Right. And we know, as caregiver, care partner here, that a person with Parkinson's without hope can decline quickly.
Oh yes, it's horrible. It is horrible. Yes.
Right. That's well known. And I can tell you from my experience with my dad, I feel like the last 12 years or so, that's been the majority of my work, is being not a cheerleader exactly, but a guy constantly pointing towards, I hear you on the pain, I hear you on the frustration. Yes. And which is the power of that. This is true too. These are true. These things that suck are true. And so are these things that right now you're not looking at, right?
Mhm, mhm.
And that seems to be, if I'm hearing you, part of what you're pointing out is,
Yeah. And through improv, I've learned about tone deflection so much more than I've ever been aware of.
tell me about
And
that.
well, with progression, and now I work with I have 3 different groups that I work with on Facebook. Each one of them has 500 members. Now, each out of one of those, I'm more like to have 100 active girls in each one of them. And that's not that's not speaking of other groups I work with and people with Parkinson's group to educate about some of the realities of Parkinson's, things that doctors misconstrue. But walking issue, when we start getting to the walkers and they start freezing and we like to say, well, they forget their walkers and they do this and they do that. No, their brain doesn't tell them to get the walker. There's a difference. When you start learning about Parkinson's, we're not taught what Parkinson's really does. People like to still say it's just this little area. No, it impacts the whole being, the whole brain, how it functions. And so instead of barking at him, don't forget your walker. Don't, gotta remember to do this, do that. It's now, he asked to make a sign to put on his walker. A person with PT told him to take long steps. He liked that. He asked me, and this is a gentleman that don't do much thinking on his own. He said, would you make me a sign that says long step? We created him a sign and he'll look at it and say, long step, long step. But when I'm walking with him now, I'll tell him long step. Come on, get your long step instead of long step, long step. I was still trying to I'm still saying the same short words, not 53 words. Remember, you've got to take long steps, but I've changed my tone because I've learned somehow through improv, I'm not even sure how, that every word that I speak to him, I can be firm and still gentle. I don't have to be asinine about it. And I have found that it also impacts me and how I feel. And so I feel like improv can change how us, as when I say caregivers, how we work with the person we love and care for 24/7, 365. And at the same time, we're trying to remember how to care for ourselves. We become hardened, we become shut out, and going in and laughing and smiling and virtual hugs and everything with this amazing group puts joy back in my life and back in my soul and my heart that caregivers lose because we become shut-ins.
So you're speaking toward the community aspect in a positive environment. And let me ask you this, because you do have these groups. We've talked before about the difference between day one or Jam for Joy, Yes and Exercise Improv, and a typical support group. How would you phrase those, what support groups do, and maybe where the gap lies that programs like Day One and Jam for Joy may be able to fill in unique ways?
Support groups, there again, having us sometimes with advanced Parkinson's caregivers face something much differently than what I refer to as a care partner early on. There again, and when they give us somebody that has anything to say, they're a person that has academia. They have psychologists, they're a therapist. I don't care what they are, they have academia. They have not been there 24/7, 365, when they're sick, when they're tired, when they're worn out. And they try to give us caregiver advice that they have no flippant idea how we feel. And you read the first chapter of the book, you close it up and throw it in the corner someplace and don't go back to it. Sometimes it's in what I've learned through you and through the group. I hear you. I heard what you say. I hear you. Yes, and not the yes, but, which you've taught me, which changes how I approach things. And we need more of that from the Parkinson's community. We need what you're teaching to be taught to work with caregivers. We need people that's at least on a care partner level, but I feel like as we go along, you'll learn things about why I say there's a difference in care partners and caregivers, which Parkinson's community, there again, don't want to offend anybody, whatever it may be. They like to use the term care partners, but caregivers are offended by it. They become very, and don't want to deal with it because they'll say, I'm not a care partner. There's no partnership here. And so the Parkinson community needs to step back, get some people involved in it that have been the ones that's been kicked by the disease. And I'm very sorry, I don't say disease. I will say disorder. I don't like the term disease. I don't say PD anymore. It's Parkinson's. That's my preference. And I have found this helps to change how I say things, how I feel, how it impacts me. The word hate just takes everything down. I abhor, I dislike, I disdain. I don't use the H word anymore. I'd much rather use the F word because I've learned these impacts that they have, and I teach other women that. I teach them the power of yes. I teach them the power of ooga. And are the ughs, and not the things that we have a tendency to be taught in the groups.
I want to highlight something for anybody listening right now. Auga, how would you describe an auga moment, or when you would use that?
It just means when your mind just kind of goes blank, when you don't know what to say, you don't need to feel bad, and you don't need to search for a word because you've got one. Auga.
Auga.
It says it all.
Right. Good. I just wanted to clarify that. You're very passionate. You're very strong with these beliefs, and the words you use and the power that they hold. I think I hear you pretty clearly on the caregiver, care partner, and I'll be frank, I hadn't considered it through that light.
Thank you.
And as you know, I'm very colored by academia as a third-year PhD student, and also coming off a master's program. And I think I've told you too, I have my struggles with a lot of academia, with the same things you're talking about, with a lot of medical establishment, with the same thing. So I straddle these lines and do my best to be empathetic and compassionate.
You do.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I think you brought this up earlier, and it is a powerful part of where improv meets the hero's journey, which is, I hear you, that a hero begins his or her journey by not necessarily hearing or knowing, that the ordinary world is filled with, I got this, I know. Mm-hmm. You spoke toward your journey of breaking out of your ordinary world, already a very strong, powerful woman, mm-hmm. doing great work, who had this discovery, many discoveries, right, built into this. As you go to face the fear, and we talk about that in the approach to the cave and the ordeal, what happens for you as you recognize, oh my gosh, I didn't know these moments were a part of my journey?
It's such a different feeling, because when I used to write something or make a comment or have a little quirk that I like to do under what I now do under Just Kelley, I always had this fear of, maybe I was going to be ridiculed, maybe somebody didn't see it. And now I've learned that I had somebody tell me some time ago, I used to drive Uber and I loved it, but I had a person one day said, if you touch one person's life each day, you've done something miraculous. And I had another person say, always ask yourself, how many lives have you touched today? And I go, ooh, that's big. But now my thing is, if I touch one life, I have changed the world. So all I have to do is touch one person with what I share, my comment, my thought, and I have changed the world. Powerful. I still have my doubts and my fears, and I still want to pull back down in my cave and hide. And the work gets me out, and my dragons come and get me and say, come on, let's go skipping.
Right.
And so those things don't leave you, but they lose their power.
Right.
And you realize that the little things you have to say can be what changes someone's life. What I share with you today may only change one person's life. And if it changes that one person's life, that's huge.
I'd like to share a little bit from the resurrection, which is step 11 of the journey you wrote. Is that okay?
That's okay.
Sure. So here's what I see. You know, you started your resurrection writing by, you know, talking about it biblically, you understood, and yet there was more for you to understand within the phenomenon. So you started looking, just like you talked about, you're a bit of a wordsmith, right? You're going to say, what does that word mean? And what does that mean to other people? And one of the words you came out with was wonder. And I think that's a great word. You know, you began to wonder what it meant. And, you know, you talked about this in terms of your journey into the cave, which we mentioned a moment ago. I went into my cave of existence. I took me, this awesome child, the earlier part of yourself, and squashed her down deep into a dungeon with ogre, my lost and not dragon, and hid for years, faking life. Me, had stopped living. That's very vulnerable, number one, and very powerful, number two. How'd you feel seeing those words on the page and the reaction they got?
Empowered.
Hmm.
It was powerful to see for the first time in my life where had really been and what had happened. That you took me to that place to look at myself. And when you can look at yourself and get up and say, wow, guess what? Time to do something with this. It's just, it's sort of heart-wrenching. There's a huge relief in a sense, but you have a new power. You have that yes moment.
Furthering down the page, you write, I return to life, me, in all caps, not some shell of what might have been me. And I realized, summarizing here, this is a resurrection of that child, the tenacious wanderer. And I will wonder as I wander, is that what it is to feel whole? Wow. That's what you wrote. How does it feel hearing it?
I've read it more than once since then.
Mm-hmm.
And when I get a little low, I go and read it again. I'm big at going back and putting my words, as you said, where I can see them. I remind myself of my words.
Mm-hmm.
My granddaughters will remind me of my words. I shared the writings with them.
Mm-hmm.
And so they kind of like hold me accountable in a sense. But it was nice to realize that I'm a wanderer, but you have no whole lot of things in my life. I've been all over the world. I've moved a lot. And so I wandered, but I was always reading. I was always searching. I was always wondering about stuff. I asked questions. I love to research. And so I love to research words. And I've learned through this journey to research me.
Mm-hmm.
So, and so it gives me a new, okay, I'm 73 years old. And I go, okay, I know I've got another, going to live to be 93. So I've got 20 more years to do something. I don't say, well, my life's almost, it's sort of like, okay, I've got to get busy. I've got 20 years, and people go. And so I'm not the typical, I don't think, always a 73-year-old that's in this place that I'm in life. But I had one of my dear friends recently tell me, you are in the exact place that you was meant to be at this moment. When I was sharing her about some of the things I had learned. There again, words. Those are powerful words. This is where I was meant to be. Right here, now, this moment, for some reason, for somebody, me, for you, I was meant to be here.
I agree. And as I started this conversation with you talking about this incredibly rare role and groundbreaking role that you serve within this program, you served as a very important piece of expanding this thing, because, this is the second round of the program. It has lived within a tight shell of academia. and foundation backing, both of which I'm very grateful for. And on the other hand, ready to expand upon so that it can have greater effect. And you gave me a gift that I didn't even realize, it was out there. And you said, no, right now. And I went, okay. You challenged me, your Yoda Sherpa, to say yes and as much as I
that moment,
I still, because you're right, I didn't respond to your first email because I went, she clearly didn't read the thing, and I just kind of went, too busy, I'm not going to deal with that. And then you went, wait a minute, still here. And I know Shannon, and she's great. And she went, did you respond to Kelley? I was like, oh, no, but yeah, okay.
I don't go by easy, do I?
It's such a great lesson. And this is where I know I bring this to you guys all the time, both in Yes and Exercise and Day One, is how much you all teach me, right? And I want to be taught that. I'm not a hardened standing on the pulpit saying, do as I say. I'm going to present you opportunity. You all are going to reflect back so much more than you even recognize. And I'm going to try to catch pieces and just shine it back at you. Go, hey, did you notice this? Did you notice that? And when that reflection of the reflection starts happening, we're doing this incredible bounce, this incredible give and take with each other.
I learned there's some things, sometimes I'll share with you that I learned from the group that I needed to learn, that I learned by being there. And so it was a very learning experience in ways that you're unaware of. That's because I'll share with you sometime that I needed and I'm thankful for. So there's a lot of things that can go on in these groups that we don't plan, we don't expect, that can change lives and change the future of, yes, Parkinson's.
Right. I agree. And you're one of the voices that is so important because you are someone who demands things. You're someone who says, I'm going to call it like I see it, and you don't have to like it, but I'm not going to be quiet about it. And Dr. Dorsey, who's one of the great leaders in our community, wrote the book Ending Parkinson's Disease, told me in an interview how the Parkinson's community is wonderful and has a problem with being maybe a little too nice, not quite speaking up enough for what it needs. That was his diagnosis from years of study. And I would tend to agree. And I don't think it means necessarily there has to be mean or anything else, but what it does take is authenticity. It takes volume. It takes tenacity, all of which you have, and that you've been equipped with some new tools and are using these in new ways is fascinating to me. And thank you. Is there anything else you wanted to say about the Day One program in particular, perhaps for other care partners who might be considering this? And
I feel like when people say, well, it's not for me, if you haven't checked it out, how do you know it's not for you? I feel like there's many misconceptions about what improv is. I know there is. I don't feel like it. I know for a fact that there is because I, as one, had one. I'm not sure sometimes I still fully understand it enough to explain it, but I can tell you the impact it can make. I feel like when care partners can learn how to, the games we play, to use those within their day-to-day life, which I do. The alphabet game, the what's in the box, these different things. They just, people say, well, I can no longer talk to my partner, to my husband, to my wife, to whatever. And yes, we can. There's tools out there, there's skills out there that we have not been introduced to, that improv can introduce us to. It allows those with Parkinson's to have their ah-ooga moments. It allows us to embrace the ah-ooga moments, the ahs, the what's in the box, what's an F, to get the F, And so what they can change what happens between the two people. It can help you to build a circle of care, which is so much different than the care team. The circle of care goes all the way out to the mechanics, I say.
Mhm.
And so with the program that you're building, with, I think, what you're looking for in the future, improv can change how those that are the ones who care, for whatever name they go by, especially when they are not paid carers, when they're family carers, in whatever level. We need all the help we can get. We need every aspect that we can find that's more positive, because we live in an area where we're working with somebody that constantly is struggle for existence, and we lose our existence, and improv can give them both back.
Thank you so much, Kelley. That is absolutely fantastic. I never thought I'd see someone be so happy to be a cactus. That's one
Yes,
for us.
but we have little stars.
That was a quick inside joke, and if you don't know anymore, you can come join us.
And that's the reason you need to be there.
All right, Kelley, thanks so much.
Thank you, Robert, for all you do.